Hello and welcome to the International Soccer Preview by Soccer Files Canada. That musical intro was Realism Stealth Warrior with a tune called Pseudo African Rednecks. I'm trying my hand at some editing to spice up the podcast here, using some African sounds, and later we will use hi-fi African drums by Cyberdread to transition through the sections. We recently finished a series previewing African Cup 2023 qualification, where we went group by group. That series featured a deep dive into the African Cup qualifying history of each team. That was not for the faint of heart. African soccer teams have the longest history of all world teams, not because they've been around the longest, but because their regional competition, the African Cup of Nations, takes place every 2 years and has done since 1957. So it was a pretty deep dive into their history, and we realized that that's not for everyone. Not everyone will be interested in that, but more people will be interested in what's happening currently in the African Cup. And it is interesting with the African Cup 2023 qualification already started, and some of the usual surprises that come with African soccer already on offer there. So if you're interested in the deep dives, please visit our website at soccerfiles.captivate.fm. That's soccerfiles with a PH in the middle and an S at the end. Or you can just type Soccer Files Canada into Google and we'll come up. For this series of 4 podcasts, we have compiled the last sections of these podcasts: the comparison of FIFA and ELO rankings, the head-to-head comparison, a discussion analyzing the prospects of each team, and our prediction of how the group is going to turn out. And then, kind of interestingly, it finishes with specific predictions on the 2 sets of games that have already been played, those games in June 2022, to see how each group is progressing so far. So we kind of kept ourselves in the dark in preparation for that. This podcast is number 2 of 3 in the series and deals with groups D, E, and F. That's Group D, containing Egypt, Guinea, Malawi, and Ethiopia. Group E with Ghana, Madagascar, Angola, and Central African Republic. And Group F with Algeria, Uganda, Niger, and Tanzania. Group D: Egypt, Guinea, Malawi, Ethiopia. So we have Egypt in pot 1. They're currently 32nd in FIFA rankings and 42nd in ELO rankings. So they are well ahead of pot 2 Guinea, who is 80th in FIFA rankings compared to 32. Well, I'll give a little summary at the end. And 105th in FIFA rankings. Pot 3 Malawi is 118th, so 38 points behind Guinea in FIFA rankings, and 133rd in ELO rankings. That's 28 points behind Guinea. And finally, and somewhat interestingly, Ethiopia is 140th in FIFA rankings. That is 22 behind Malawi. However, they are 122nd in ELO rankings, which puts them 11 points ahead of Malawi and only 17 points behind Guinea. So ELO rankings see Ethiopia as quite competitive here, whereas FIFA rankings put them at the bottom. Okay, let's move on to their head-to-head records. And we have Egypt with a winning record over Guinea. That is 3 wins, 1 draw, and 1 loss. and a winning record over Malawi too. But that's quite tight with 3 wins, 1 draw, and 2 losses. But they have a commanding record over Ethiopia with 10 wins, 3 draws, and 2 losses. Most of those good results for Ethiopia coming in the early years. Guinea and Malawi. Guinea has a superior record with 4 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. And it's the same record against Ethiopia, 4 wins, 2 draws, and 1 loss. So Guinea with superior records to Malawi and Ethiopia. And finally, Malawi and Ethiopia. Malawi has a better record than expected, I must say, with 2 wins, 2 draws, and 0 losses. So even though ELO puts Ethiopia ahead of Malawi, Malawi definitely has the better head-to-head record. All right, well, let's just talk about the groups a little bit here. And I'm sorry, I did not have the information in the document, so I just got to find it here. Please hold. You will be given attention shortly. Okay, so right, so let's look at the group then. So it's a pretty interesting group. Rankings and even head-to-head records clearly delineate the pecking order in support of the seeding. The only exception, as we've mentioned, Ethiopia ahead of Malawi, but that seems actually, for one of the rare times I agree with FIFA rankings more, because Malawi does seem a bit stronger going into this. But even though those seedings may be accurate in terms of general strength, all the teams here are quite inconsistent from performance to performance. So there is kind of an exciting possibility of things not going as expected. Egypt are certainly the strongest team, and they come into this qualifying in good form. They did disappoint by losing on penalties there in the 2021 African Cup final and in the final round of 2022 World Cup qualification. But let's face it, they did reach those levels, which is far beyond any other team here has reached in recent times, at least. So it seems like top spot is Egypt's to lose. However, they do sometimes squander that, as we saw 3 times in a row from 2012 to 2015, and really going out to weak teams like Niger and Central African Republic. So I would always be a little bit nervous as an Egyptian fan that they can kind of collapse like that. That does seem to be behind them, but it remains kind of a lingering worry. Guinea and Malawi and Ethiopia are all kind of middling teams. They all reached the 2021 African Cup. Of course, they won't all do so here. Guinea is the strongest of them, and they reach the Cup more consistently than the other two. But sometimes they don't reach the Cup, and they can't be relied upon to do so. So they have superior records, as we saw to Malawi and Ethiopia. And that's actually particularly relevant against Mali, since they have 2 wins, 1 draw, and 0 losses since 2017. So that record is more recent. Malawi typically finishes 3rd in their group. Their unusual feature, as we saw in the team by team, is they tend to do a bit better on the road than most African teams. But that doesn't always happen, so it's hard to say that will come into play here. Ethiopia is very much a team that's strong at home and weak on the road, but sometimes they defy that too. All in all, I mean, I can't predict anything other than the seeding order, but I do feel like there's enough inconsistency among the teams that it could turn out a bit differently. Here is my official prediction: Egypt, Guinea, Malawi, and Ethiopia. Third place, I would say, seems the most contentious, but in reality, the whole group could possibly be contentious. Now, I am going to do something unique in our podcast, which is, which is, I don't know the results. So I'm going to predict kind of game by game here. And, maybe, and see if things are going as predicted. So here we go. Just going to create a graphic here for the YouTube listeners, and here we go. So the first game is Malawi and Ethiopia in the race for third place or higher. A very important game to both of them. They need to win. They need to win this to avoid finishing last. Malawi, maybe not as strong at home as a lot of African teams, but Ethiopia notoriously weak on the road. So I have to give this to Malawi 2-0. Sorry, I'm just opening up the results. Here we go. And the result is, yes, Malawi winning 2-1 over Ethiopia. All the goals were scored on penalties, and Malawi's Hellings or Gabadino Mahango got both of theirs, I guess, their penalty taker. And Malawi went 2-0 up in the first half. So a fairly comfortable win. Ethiopia getting their penalty goal in the second half. So that is as expected. Egypt and Guinea. I'm always a bit insecure with Egypt, even at home, that they can lapse. But I wouldn't predict it though. So I'm going to say Egypt 2-0 at home over Guinea. And it is 1-0 at home. They got that single goal at 87. So Mustafa Mohammed getting that goal. He's the one who plays for Galatasaray. Getting that goal, a late winner at 87. So Egypt and Malawi going into the second round with 3 points. The second round has Guinea with Malawi at home. So again, if things are to go as expected, we would expect Guinea to win maybe 2-0 or so. But Malawi is a bit better on the road and can surprise. So I'm going to change the 2-0 to 2-1. But I think it would be rash to predict Malawi getting anything out of this game, though not impossible. And the result is Guinea 1-0, but Malawi almost got something out of the game because Guinea got their goal at 90+1. That was scored by Naby Keita. I wonder if Guinea fans will be mad at me by saying he's not an outstanding player on the field. He does get things done, though, and he got it done here with the late goal. Okay, finally, Ethiopia and Egypt. This could be quite interesting, despite the mismatch, Egypt being a much stronger team. Ethiopia is strong at home. They have a lot of history. They have a lot of pride in their home games. And I would not be shocked to see Egypt drop points here. Shall I predict it? I'm going to madly predict a draw here, although Egypt is the stronger team. And let me see what happened. Oh my goodness, it is a 2-0 win for Ethiopia. So I was on the right track, but not actually bold enough in my prediction. was Dawa Hotessa scoring at 21, and Shimelis Bekele, both players we introduced earlier on, scoring at 39 for a pretty comfortable victory. There. But honestly, not a shock, not as much a shock as maybe people who don't know Africa will be shocked. But African teams are very strong at home, particularly Ethiopia. And Egypt should be able to survive that blow. It's not a death blow by any point. Okay, well, that brings us to the end of our podcast. Group E: Ghana, Madagascar, Angola, Central African Republic. Let's look at them in comparison. So in terms of ranking, we have Ghana first. And there, I'm going to do FIFA and then I'm going to do ELO, just for comparison's sake. So Ghana is 60th in FIFA. Madagascar is 102. Angola 126. Central African Republic 133. So the FIFA rankings actually are the ones that dictate the pot numbers. And we see there that there's quite a bit of separation between the teams, except Angola is pretty close to fourth place Central African Republic. I don't agree with that, and the the ELO rankings are a little bit more accurate for me. It has Ghana as 72nd, Angola is second at 107, and Madagascar is 124, and Central African Republic is 144. So a bit of separation there between Madagascar and Central African Republic. But the key point is that ELO has Angola as the second strongest team here. So we'll look at some stuff. So Ghana has actually kind of fallen down quite a bit over the last few years. They were consistently around 30th from 2006 to 2013. And they've kind of slid back all the way to 72nd. I'm talking about ELO rankings there, which we kind of favor. But before that, before 2006, they were actually in the 80s. So really there from 2006 is when they got stronger. Madagascar is 124th in the ELO rankings, and they have improved. They were as low as 163 in 2012, but they just managed to crack 100 with that great performance in 2019. They were 97th in 2020, but dropped down to 124th since then. Angola, there is a big split, as we saw, between the FIFA and the ELO rankings there. But around 2008, they were around 60. So those were good times, and they've kind of slowly fallen all the way back to 107th. But that does mark an improvement, because they were around 120 in ELO rankings in 2018. So some improvement there. And we can guess that Central African Republic were very weak before that string of a good African Cup results. And they were around 181st in FIFA and 164th in ELO in 2006. I'd probably have to agree with FIFA on that one. They were very weak. But they did rise up to around 130 or 120 even by 2019, but have since fallen back to 145 in ELO rankings. Okay, let's look at the head-to-head for these groups. First, Ghana versus Madagascar. They have actually never met in major competition. So we move on to Ghana versus Angola. And they've only played 3 times, and Ghana won twice and Angola won once. But their most recent meeting in 2010, that was the African Cup quarterfinal. It was in Angola, took place in Angola, but Ghana knocked them out in the quarterfinals. Okay, and Ghana versus Central African Republic, they have not played in major competition either. Madagascar versus Angola is interesting. It seems to be the closest matchup in this group, and it has been in the past. So between them, Madagascar has the edge with 1 win, 3 draws, and 0 losses. But the overriding feeling there is that they're quite even with the 3 draws. And in 2017, their most recent meeting, they tied twice. Madagascar has met Central African Republic. That was in 2018 World Cup qualifying, and they bested them with a win at home and a tie on the road. So Madagascar with a 1 win, 1 draw, 0 losses there. And kind of interestingly, Angola and Central African Republic, they've only met in the one campaign, which was 2017 African Cup qualifying, and they exchanged home wins. So Angola won 4-0 at home, but then Central African Republic won 3-1 when they were at home. And so the record between them is 1 win, 0 draws, and 1 loss. So I think the overriding message there is that apart from Ghana, who seem to be pretty far out ahead, the other 3 looks quite competitive. Angola and Madagascar and Central African Republic perhaps getting some points. So let's talk about it a little bit in terms of what we think are the relative strengths here. Ghana's form, though, despite being the strongest team in most measures, their form is a bit questionable. It follows a general weakening, honestly, to the point of being a pot 2 team going into the 2021 African Cup finals. They were in pot 2, and then of course they proved it by not passing the group stage. However, they did win passage to the World Cup shortly after, and it leaves us in a bit of doubt as to what their form is, but they're not likely to sink low enough to get embroiled with the teams below. It's especially so because Madagascar is a fairly weak second seed team, I would say. And we saw that ELO actually sees Angola as probably the second seed team. Either way, it seems a pretty contentious battle between those 2 for second. And I don't know, Central African Republic would have been a contender a few years ago after their improvement from 2012, but they really haven't shown that form since 2017. However, at the very least, they should play a spoiler role by stealing some points at home and perhaps making a difference to what happens at the top. So all in all, no matter how many points Ghana drops, it surely couldn't be enough to see them fall out of the top 2. And honestly, while ELO is usually more accurate than FIFA, Angola do seem kind of weak recently in recent campaigns. So I generally find that FIFA rankings are more short-term and Angola are more long-term, and I generally prefer the ELO rankings for that. But if we're looking at recent form, I don't think Angola necessarily holds an advantage. Madagascar do have to watch out for cratering campaigns towards the end here. They actually start with 2 home games, or they start with an away game and then have 2 home games, so they'll probably get off to a good start. It's all set up here for their penchant to kind of crash and burn at the end. So I'm a bit worried about that, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them get off to a good start. At their best, Central African Republic has gone undefeated at home. So Even at their worst, to be honest, they're probably going to take a couple of points there. So there it is. My prediction is Ghana finishing first, Madagascar second, Angola third, although I do see that as a bit of a toss-up, and Central African Republic getting a few points at home in the end. Okay, the last section of the podcast deals with the actual results, which I don't know. And so in the first game, we have Angola versus Central African Republic. I honestly don't think Central African Republic is going to challenge on the road. And I think Angola will be anxious to get off to a good start. So I'm going to say 2-0 Angola there, perhaps even 3-0. And the result is 2-1. So less convincing than they probably wanted, but they got the result they needed. Central African Republic actually scoring first, 32 minutes in there, and Angola getting 2 in a row at 72 and 76 to save face. Okay, we have Ghana and Madagascar. I think Ghana will be good at home and anxious to get off to a good start and actually put this group to rest as quickly as they can, because their attention will be more focused on the World Cup. So I think they're going to win this 2-0. I would even go to 3-0. I don't see Madagascar scoring here. Ooh, well done me. It is 3-0. It took Ghana until the second half to score their first goal, but they pretty much won it quickly with goals at 53 and 56. And kind of a late gravy goal at 86. So it is Mohamed Kudus there with the first goal. Okay, so we have Ghana in first place as expected after the first round. And now the second set of games sees Central African Republic playing Ghana at home. But I got to say, it would not be a shock for Ghana to drop points here. That's the way it is in Africa. But you have to kind of favor Ghana even away, and I'm going to say it'll be 2-1 for Ghana there. Let's see. Yeah, 1-1. Mohamed Kudus scoring Ghana's goal there, so maybe I didn't give him enough credit earlier in the podcast, but a good result for Central African Republic, who Ghana scored at 17 and Central African Republic tied at 41. There was no scoring in the second half. But again, a lot of people who aren't in the know might consider that a bit shocking, but in Africa, really it's not. Okay, and Madagascar versus Angola. Well, this is a crucial game because I see these two as pretty even. Oh, sorry, I've been meaning to write the scores into the visual that we have for our YouTube listeners, and I have been typing them into the wrong document, I confess. Okay, Madagascar and Angola. This really could go either way. At home, I'd have to give Madagascar the nod. And I did put them as second place finishers in the group, thinking that their form was slightly better. Certainly, I wouldn't be surprised to see Angola win. And a draw, I'm almost tempted to choose, but I'm going to choose 2-1 Madagascar there. Let's see what happened. And it is 1-1. So actually, that probably is beneficial to Angola. Kind of gives them a leg up in that. And so maybe they're going to be the ones to finish second. So in that case, Madagascar scored at 36, and Gelson, a familiar name actually to me, got the equalizer at 43, and just like the other game, no scoring in the second half. So we have in the standings Ghana and Angola with 4 points. Good for Angola there. Central African Republic, by dint of goal difference, are in third, and Madagascar off to a poor start in fourth. I said actually Madagascar would get off to a good start, so now they're gonna need a good finish which typically they don't do. So after looking at those rounds, I would probably alter my prediction to have Ghana, Angola, Madagascar, and Central African Republic. Maybe Central African Republic even challenging for third place. All right, well, that brings us to the end of the podcast. Group F, Algeria, Uganda, Niger, Tanzania. Now we move on to part 3. So we're edging towards looking at how they've done so far. But we're going to look at the rankings and head-to-head records first. And how about the rankings, Kiera?
So Algeria does come from pot 1, and they are ranked 44th with both FIFA and ELO rankings.
Yeah, that's right. And that's actually down from 26th in December 2021. They were 26th in the ELO rankings. But they're all over the place, really. Before, in 2019, they were 68th in FIFA. And in December 2014, they were 18th in FIFA. And the ELO rankings are kind of similar, not so extreme, but it does kind of show how up and down they've been. I mean, to put a point on it, in June 2008, in both ranking systems, they were below 100. So a pretty inconsistent team there. How about Uganda?
So Uganda is the pot 2 team, and they are ranked 86th in FIFA rankings and 96th in ELO.
Yeah, and they've pretty much always been in that range. They did dip below 100 in ELO rankings in 2018, but they were also up as high as 63rd in 2011. But they don't sway around as much as Algeria. How about Niger?
So Niger is the pot 3 team, ranked 116th in FIFA, but 150th by ELO.
Right, and actually 150th is the lowest they've ever been. In ELO, they're usually around 130th, and they have reached up to as high as 118th in 2011. But yeah, they'll be looking to kind of improve their ranking. Okay, and last is Tanzania.
Yep, our pot 4 team is ranked 130th by FIFA and 128th in ELO rankings.
Yeah, right. And they've always kind of been in that range of around 110 to 130. So no surprise there. They did break 100 in the FIFA rankings in 2008, making it up to 99th. But otherwise, they've always been below 100. Okay, so there's quite a bit of range between them, about 40 points. 40 points between Uganda and Algeria, and then about 30 points between the other 3 teams in the FIFA rankings. However, in the ELO rankings, Tanzania is actually about 30 points ahead of Niger, well ahead. And so by that, by ELO rankings, it looks like it would be Tanzania as the pot 3 team and Niger as the pot 4 team. And though we're going to do head-to-head before discussions, I'm going to kind of argue that that's right. Like Tanzania seems more like the pot 3 team and Niger more like the pot 4 team. But let's take a look at head-to-head first, beginning with Algeria's record against Uganda.
Yeah, so the record there is 2 wins, 3 ties, and 2 losses.
Wow, that is surprising. So they're dead even. There. They last played though in the 2000 African Cup, so that record is a bit stale. Nevertheless, it's pretty interesting. How about Algeria versus Niger?
So Algeria does have the strong winning record there with 5 wins, no ties, and 1 loss.
Right, and no surprise there. Most relevantly, they played in 2022 World Cup qualifying there, and they had 2 big wins, 6-1 and 4-0 over Niger. So we can guess they won't have much trouble with Niger here. Algeria versus Tanzania?
Again, Algeria has come off the stronger of the two with 3 wins, 3 ties, and 1 loss.
Okay, well, 3 ties is pretty good there for Tanzania, so maybe they will be able to get something off Algeria, probably at home. Although they did tie them in Algeria in 2012. And their most recent meetings were both in 2018 and 2019. So the record there is 2 wins for Algeria and 1 draw in Tanzania. Okay, how about Uganda and Niger?
So the record is 2 wins, 1 tie, 1 loss.
Right, their last meeting was in 2010. They might meet in a local cup, but we're just looking at major competitions here. Uganda and Tanzania, the neighbors.
Yeah, quite a few meetings. So 4 wins, 3 ties, and 3 losses.
Oh, that is pretty tight. So Uganda just edging it there with 1 extra win. All of those were actually in the 1900s, except for 1 meeting in 2019. And if you remember from our discussion above, Tanzania came out ahead there, tying in the first game and winning 3-0 in the second. So that's their most recent head-to-head. How about Niger and Tanzania?
We have no records. They haven't met.
Oh, okay, in major competition. All right, well, we're going to move on to a bit of discussion and predictions. So I'd say this is a pretty interesting group because of its unpredictability. You got to have Algeria as the favorite, but they are coming off that embarrassing group stage exit in 2021. And it's not the only time that kind of thing has happened. They were really surprisingly weak in the 2018 World Cup, so they might be vulnerable here. Uganda, who has an even head-to-head with Algeria, could be a threat. And Niger and Tanzania are capable of strong campaigns. And Tanzania's recent form, as I said, puts them, for me, ahead of Niger. And I think they're capable of taking maybe some points from the top teams.
Yeah, as you said, Algeria didn't just lapse in the 2021 African Cup, but do tend to do so from time to time. Imperia's form is possible, but it can't be relied on. And unless they rediscover that here, they are sure to drop some points, especially away. And they have dropped points to all of these teams and do so in a majority of their meetings with Uganda and Tanzania. So finishing second would be lapseful enough, although it is hard, though not completely out of the question, to see them fail to qualify.
Yeah, well, the top 2 teams advance, so it would be a bit of a shock if they came third.
Yeah.
But I think definitely they're going to drop some points on the road. All of these teams are very strong at home.
Yeah, and Uganda and Tanzania are both in better form relative to their historical average. Both reached the cup in 2019. Tanzania bested Uganda there, as we just mentioned, but Uganda did finish first. Uganda has the better record against Algeria, so it seems more likely to challenge for first or take second place.
Yeah, I mean, it would be a very good campaign for them to finish first, but putting in a good challenge would be good. To me, Niger seems the weakest team, though, despite Tanzania being from pot 4. ELO definitely seems correct. And it's a 32 places that they have Tanzania ahead of Niger. Kind of a shocking difference between the 2 systems. But as you showed us, they've never met head-to-head. So it's hard to tell. Niger's form is not as good coming in. Tanzania were competitive in the last few campaigns they had. But we do know Niger is capable, having reached the African Cup in that amazing qualification in 2012 and in the Cup after. So what's your impression, Kiera? Do you have a prediction? Give it to us straight. What do you say is going to happen?
Well, I have to agree with you. I think Algeria, Uganda, Tanzania, and Niger is how it's going to end up.
All right. Well, that would upset FIFA rankings and be good for Tanzania. But yeah, I'm the same way. And I see actually second place as the most contentious there. There is a chance of Uganda upsetting Algeria, but I think there's a stronger chance of Tanzania upsetting Uganda. And I just don't think Niger are going to make a big impression despite taking some home points here. So we're going to move on to kind of an exciting part of the podcast and look at the first 4 games to see, to predict, and then to see how it's progressed so far. So we have Niger at home against Tanzania. So for me, I think this is where Tanzania will prove that they are the pot 3 team. But all teams in Africa are strong at home, so I think a draw may be as much as they could get out of this, and that would be pretty good for Tanzania. I'm going to say 1-1, slightly favouring Niger, the home team, although slightly hoping for Tanzania to prove themselves. Do you have the score there?
I do. It was indeed 1-1.
Woo! I feel good about that. Okay, so 1-1. That gives Tanzania definitely a bit of an advantage, having earned a point away. Algeria and Uganda. Well, we have talked about kind of Algeria being vulnerable and flopping, but I don't think they're going to do that at home here. It may go the other way, where they come back from that 2021 disappointment and show how strong they are. But at home, I don't think they're going to lose. I'm going to say 2-0 Algeria.
You are right again.
Oh my God.
On a roll.
I swear I have not looked at these scores. Okay, well, that puts Algeria in first place after the first round. And now we go to Uganda and Niger. I think this is going to be a fairly easy win for Uganda. So I'm going to say 2-0.
So a bit of a surprise with this one.
Uh-huh.
A 1-1 draw.
Ooh, well, that's a good comeback for Niger.
Yeah.
And I mean, I guess Uganda's problem maybe is taking too many ties at home in games that they should be winning. So that's kind of bad for them. Mm-hmm. We'll really test Algeria's consistency here in Tanzania, who are strong at home. So I think probably the odds makers would have Algeria winning this one, but their historical record, actually, Tanzania, I think they've taken points more than being beaten. So I'm going to say 1-1 here, and I'm even going to be as bold as to favor Tanzania slightly.
Well, as it turns out, it was a 2-0 win for Algeria.
Okay, well, that would be kind of expected, and a good show of consistency for Algeria. So they're already off to a great start in this group. Do you want to tell us what the standings are after these 2 games?
Yeah, so unsurprisingly, Algeria is on top with 6 points. But what neither of us would have predicted is Niger is currently in second with 2 points from their 2 ties.
Interestingly, interesting. I may have misjudged Niger there. I mean, actually, when I first looked at the group, I kind of thought the 3 were fairly even. But then after going through all the stuff, I began to differentiate them. But maybe my first impression of I'm trying to make I sound like I'm trying to make myself sound smart. I'm not trying to do that. My first impression, just on a quick look, was that they were fairly even, and it may turn out to be that way.
Yeah. And I mean, right now, Niger with their 2 points, it's only just ahead of Tanzania and Uganda, who both have 1 point right now. So.
Yeah, that's true. So anyway, I think having looked at the results here, I think ties, a lot of these kind of 3rd-tier teams are kind of defined by ties. Like, they do go undefeated at home, and their success comes down to whether they can convert those ties into wins. So that seems to be what's happening here. And probably that the team that does manage to do that will be the team that finishes second, behind Algeria, who seem well on course to finish first.
Yeah.
Great. Well, that brings us to the end of the podcast. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of this podcast, which compiled the final discussions and predictions for these three qualifying teams. If you want to look more deeply into the teams, you can check out the full podcast on each group on our website at soccerfiles.captivate.fm. That is Soccerfiles with a PH in the middle and an S at the end. Or just type Soccer Files Canada into Google and we'll come up. And stay tuned as we continue on this quick series with the next groups. That's all from Soccer Files Canada for this episode. Goodbye.